I got another really wholesome one for you guys today. A heartwarming movie that's definitely gonna bring you all the warm and fuzzies. All the warm and fuzzies. And definitely not in a sarcastic way, of course. I feel like I always say this, but this one in particular is a little extra doozy of a movie. And the only reason I came across the movie suggestion and recommendation, was because I was perusing the effed up movies subreddit. So that should tell you all you need to know. So buckle up, maybe do double buckle today because it's gonna be one hell of a bumpy ride through hell, through movie hell. And this movie definitely has some questionable subject matter and content therein. But don't worry, your mother's got you. Like I always do, I'm gonna PG-13ify it as much as humanly possible. Because the first time I watched this movie, I was like, oh, okay, okay. And you're probably gonna have the same reaction. Our main protagonist for today's horror fest of a movie, a French horror fest of a movie, by the way, and our man, Mark Stevens, is a somewhat struggling singer/performer who pretty much just performs at any gig he can get his hands on. His most frequent gig go-tos being retirement homes. But hey, they need some entertainment too, right? And whether subpar or not, Mark books a Christmas special, because it's around Christmas time when the movie's taking place, set to participate and perform in a Christmas gala of sorts. So hooray, Mark! But en route to that Christmas gala, which seems like a sizable distance away, Mark's van, which pretty much doubles as his house as well, breaks down and in the middle of a rainstorm, because Mark is one lucky dude. Unable to ascertain the problem with his van, Mark is stranded all on his lonesome, inside his van in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a storm. That is, until an unsettling man named Boris kind of jump scares him at his van window, mid-heavy rainstorm, saying he's looking for his lost dog named Bella. And of course his dog is named Bella. You know, raise your hand if you have a dog named Bella. Or Max, or Buddy. I see you. I see you. Anywho, after Mark directs Boris to where he thought he saw something run across the road, which, you know, could potentially be Bella, Boris then heads out in search of it. Mark, in turn, heading after Boris to inquire about the sign for an inn he saw kind of miles back. And after a kind of eerie, uncomfortable bout of hesitance, Boris, who comes off as a bit strange, tells Mark that he knows where the inn is and agrees to lead Mark over to it, but only if Mark remains quiet the whole way over so they can potentially hear Bella out in the forest. Even though it's heavy rain, it's like pouring rain. And though Boris definitely gives off major weirdo vibes, he actually does lead Mark to the little in the middle of nowhere inn, calling out to Mr. Bartell, despite it being in the middle of the night. Mr. Bartell being the apparent innkeeper and owner. Tired and kind of brusque because he was just woken up from his beauty sleep, Mr. Bartell leads Mark up into a bedroom to stay the night in, a place where Mark can get a roof over his head and some shut-eye. And the next morning, Mark awakens to find Mr. Bartell towing in his stalled, broken van via tractor. So I guess Boris took the liberty of bringing Bartell up to speed about the broken van. Mr. Bartell seems much cheerier and more lively this morning, given that he's now realized Mark is a singer and performer, given that's what's inscribed on the side of Mark's van. Mr. Bartell having now realized that they're kindred spirits, because Mr. Bartell is a performer as well. He apparently used to be a comedian. So they're pretty much colleagues now and besties of the trade. So, you know, since the van is busted up and Mark can't get anywhere, Mr. Bartell insists that he make Mark breakfast, and then will head outside and try to fix his fellow performer's van, given that the mechanic is apparently busy for the whole day, even after Mr. Bartell gave him a little ring. And while Mark says, like, oh no, you don't have to do that, that's too much, Bartell absolutely won't hear it and says he would be honored to fix up a fellow performer's car or van, whatever. So after a hot breakfast, Bartell, who insisted on dropping the Mr. from his name, given that he and Mark are friends now, that was quick. No red flags there at all. Bartell gets a work in on Mark's van, and since Mark apparently knows nothing about cars and can really be of no help at this point, he tells Bartell that he's just gonna go off on a wee little walk. A wee little freezing early morning walk. Lovely, refreshing. But Bartell straightaway gets uneasy about it, warning Mark to not go down to the village, citing that the people there are a little different. Bartel joking off his tension by saying, yeah, they're different because they're not performers like us. But when Mark goes on to inquire why Bartel actually doesn't like the village and is wary of it, Bartel becomes a stumbling, stuttering, panicky mess. So Mark's like, okay, I won't go down to the village, I promise. Calm down. So once Mark heads off on his little morning stroll and is far enough away, Bartel then uses a crowbar to break into the back of Mark's van, his highly respected fellow performer's van, testing out Mark's bed, caressing the steering wheel, and snooping through Mark's stuff. Most of all, snatching Mark's phone from the glove box and an envelope of some personalized lady pictures. Ayo. And Bartel gets a little too worked up as he's looking through Mark's clothes and performance costumes. Ew. Meanwhile, while Mark is out on his little walkabout, he ends up kind of breaking his coerced promise of not heading out anywhere near the village, sneaking up over to a dilapidated shack or barn when he hears some noise, some particular noises, peeking in to see some of the villagers doing some questionable things with a baby cow. So now you have a glimpse into what I mean when I say this movie is all shades of weird and creepy. So even as eccentric and odd as Bartel seems, maybe, just maybe, he was a little right about the village folk. So after Mark, who is now scarred, subsequently and quickly right on the spot, cuts his walk short and returns to Bartel's inn, or Bartel's property, Bartel informs him that, unfortunately, he cannot get his van working, informing Mark that the mechanic can't even make it over until the next day. Understandably, Mark is not loving the idea of having to stay there a whole nother day, but Bartel insists that nothing can be done to help the van until the mechanic arrives. The next day. So since Mark is trapped there a whole nother day, Bartel makes it up to him, I guess, by making him a hearty king-size dinner, because food heals all. And while Mark is sitting at the table trying to eat his dinner in peace, Bartel starts trauma dumping, or trauma dunking at this point, about his lost love, Gloria, his ex-wife who left him. Bartel says that his beloved Gloria was also a singer, just like Mark, and she was a very talented one at that, after which Bartel starts choking up and getting all teary-eyed. Awkward! So Mark diverts the awkward subject by bringing the village up again, but Bartel just outright ignores his question, going on to laud and praise the singing ability of his ex-wife, Gloria, branching off to boast about his own talents in the realm of comedy and humor. But Bartel doesn't perform anymore, because when Gloria left, so did his humor. Womp womp. And after subjecting a very uninterested Mark to one of his old semi-funny jokes-ish, Bartel insists that it's Mark's turn to perform, to sing for him. Because I perform for you, so now you perform for me. But I don't remember Mark agreeing to that, and neither does Mark. While Mark over here wants to do anything but that, he feels pretty obligated and feels that he owes him something for Bartel's over-the-top hospitality. So he does end up singing for Bartel. Bartel then making Mark sing the song all the way through, as opposed to a little segment that Mark gave. And when Mark starts singing the whole song, he starts getting into it and gives it his all. At the song's conclusion, Bartel is very pleased, very appeased, and almost in utter awe. After which Mark quickly excuses himself off to bed, citing that he has a very long drive tomorrow, and him leaving has nothing to do with the fact that he's weirded the hell out. Of course not, he's just tired. The next morning, when Mark wakes up, he gets himself all dressed, and heads downstairs to an eerily empty house. Heading outside to see if his van has been fixed and is back in working order. And hello, he's got a keyboard in his van? Oh, iconic. Anyway, unfortunately, the van is not fixed. And when Mark opens the hood, it looks like his whole car battery is missing. At least I think that's where the battery goes. I don't know, I'm a scooter person, okay? So now Mark is confused and suspicious. Quite a troubling duo of emotions right there. So with Mr. Bartel still nowhere in sight, Mark heads back inside the empty house/inn. And since Mark can't find his own mobile phone in the van, I wonder why that is, He tries to use the landline inside, before realizing the phone isn't working at all because the phone cord has been cut. Never a good sign. Was the phone ever even connected? Given that's the same phone that Bartel called the mechanic on. Makes you think. Anywho, Mark, who is now pretty confuzzled and perplexed, heads back outside searching for Bartel around the cold, snowy, freezing property, coming across a pretty dilapidated shack of a house that Bartel seems to live in. Mark finding his stolen cell phone and that envelope of lady pictures. Right as Bartel appears in the doorway, ew, informing a now startled Mark that he just went down to the Forbidden Village to order Mark a new car battery. But given the increasingly shady situation and his stolen items, Mark is sussed out, okay? And for good reason. Because when Mark makes it back up to his room, he finds that his clothes in the wardrobe are missing and have been switched out with some lady dresses. Just as a barrage of clanking and smashing noises erupts from outside, and when Mark hurries over to the window to see what all the hullabaloo is about, he sees Bartel taking an axe to his beloved van. And Bartel is really going at it, smashing every inch of the van he can and dousing it in gasoline before Mark makes it downstairs and outside. Mark somewhat calmly confronting Bartel, probably being calm at this point because he's scared of him and what he could potentially do. And this is where we learn that, surprise, surprise, Bartel is the one who finessed the van's perfectly functional battery. Bartel kind of taunting him with it, while demanding to know why Mark only left to come back and crush his heart all over again. Right before Bartel conks Mark over the head with the battery, subsequently knocking him out. Because car batteries are pretty damn heavy, right? Jeez. Bartel subsequently returning his twisted attention back to destroying the van, setting it ablaze and prompting it to explode. And pretty damn close to the unconscious Mark. Oh. He's gonna wake up with a bit of a sunburn. After unceremoniously dragging Mark's unconscious body back upstairs, he removes Mark's now bloody, plain, ugly dude clothes, and instead buttons him up in a much more flattering floral print dress. Wow. Much better. Or is it? Because Bartel is still tweaking out over there. To complete the makeover, Bartel gives Mark, who's now awake but tied to a chair, a very rough and tumble haircut, a very close shave, as Mark is tearily begging and pleading with Bartel to release him and let him go. But Bartel assuages his concerns and assures Mark that he's making him look ugly for his own protection, and that it hurts me just as much as it hurts you. Yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah. But since Mark over here has just got all beautified and primped up, looking absolutely gorgeous, Bartel has to make sure that he's looking dapper himself. You go, girl, before heading over to his bed and cuddling up with the now sobbing Mark, and kind of just caressing Mark's arm, ew. Revering and talking to Mark like they're close and have known each other for years. Bartel then straps Mark on the back of his tractor so they can hunt down and then chop down the perfect Christmas tree. The perfect Christmas tree for their perfectly happy home. Home sweet home, Mark. But while Bartel is all jovial and merry about it, cause I guess 'tis the season, Mark is on the back over there obviously less than enthused about it, looking like an absolute bona fide picture of misery. But it's all fun and games, wee! Once they've puttered off on their tractor toward their entirely mutual, wholeheartedly consensual tree hunting extravaganza, Mark manages to sneak away off the tractor back, while Bartel is over there preoccupied trying to cut down a tree, their tree, and Bartel is not too happy when he realizes it, frantically calling out for Gloria! Gloria! AKA Mark, aka his beloved wife that's finally returned to him. Mark. Gloria. So Bartel starts crashing out when he can't find her. And he just got her back after so many years. So Mark/Gloria actually makes it decently far away out into the woods, despite the woods being wholeheartedly unfamiliar and his hands being tied behind his back. But unfortunately, as Mark is gaining distance, he ends up snagging himself in a concealed snare trap, bringing his furtive escape attempt to an untimely end. And despite how absolutely freezing it is out there, it's not until nightfall that Mark is finally discovered, but not by Bartel, by Boris, who, you guessed it, is still out in the woods looking for Bella, his dog. But instead of helping Mark and freeing him, Boris just sits down beside him and starts petting Mark's head while lamenting about his poor lost Bella. Eventually just ditching Mark/Gloria, Marcoria, to head back and inform Mr. Bartel of Mark's unfortunate whereabouts. So after a very early morning Marcoria retrieval, a rescue mission of Bartel's beloved wife, they strap a nearly lifeless Mark onto the back of their tractor pole, their tractor hitch, and transport him back to the accursed inn, catching the attention of a couple of the creepy village folk along the way back. As punishment for his wife's escape, Bartel then ties his beloved Gloria to a makeshift cross inside his property barn, actually going as far as nailing Mark to the cross, like through the wrist. What? Ugh. If the original wife, Gloria, did exist, then it's pretty damn clear why she left and ran to the hills to get the hell out of there, if she even really ran away at all. If she really did exist, I don't know what fate befell her, and I don't think I want to know. I'm getting that feeling. So Bartel is not only extremely delusional, but entirely psychopathic and sadistic. But the village folk are now onto him, having followed Bartel home after spying his new guest or new company. And while they're sneaky about being on Bartel's property, he can kind of sense that they've been there. So later that night, Bartel heads over to the local village bar, where everyone there seems to strongly dislike him and be at odds with him. But Bartel has come to warn all of them not to interfere with his newly rekindled happiness, and that he wants himself and his beloved wife to be left alone in peace. Or else. But given that he's in a room full of people that seem to be his enemies, the threat isn't received all too well. Who could have guessed? And has probably only just fastened the group's collective twisted attention on the fact that his wife is back in town. Which doesn't seem like a good thing to me, but... After that display of stupidity and bravado, Bartel returns home to have a romantic dinner with the wifey, couple goals, and while Mark is over there eating ravenously because he's probably been starved, knowing Bartel begins explaining his dreams of reopening the inn now that she's returned, now that his wife has returned, stating that Mark/Gloria could sing as the opening act, and that Bartel could then perform his outstanding comedy. But the only joke here, Bartel, is your deteriorated mental state. And it ain't a funny one. Mid-meal, mid-fantasizing about their glorious future plans, there's a thudding at the door, so Bartel right away snatches up his rifle. Such a doting, protective husband. Oh, wow. Husband goals. But to Bartel's relief, it's just Boris, who has finally, at long last, found his dog? His, dog? Welcome home, Bella the dog. But, so is everyone around here just as delusional as the other? There's gotta be something in the water here. Like, what? That, or everyone is just secretly blind. I don't know. But now they've reunited the whole family together again, just in time for Christmas. Wow! Glory hallelujah. What a special time. Love and good family vibes all round. Except from Mark over there, who's clearly not feeling the Christmas spirit. And right in that moment, as Mark, understandably, starts sobbing, because he's reached the peak of understanding how crazy these people are and how screwed and doomed he really is, Bartel and Boris start mimicking him and mocking him for it. And for quite some time, too. Some family get-together. But all the loud taunting, sobbing ruckus is brought to an immediate snapping halt as a gunshot blasts through the window and straight into Boris's back, snapping Bartel into action. After Bartel quickly grabs his rifle and smashes out all the lights, A mob of angry villagers, plus an equally angry pig, approaches the little inn. Mark beginning to try and rasp and whisper for some help. Bartel consequently not pistol whipping, rifle whipping Mark to the ground as shots start ringing out all around him. Boris still close by, moaning and grumbling in pain and slowly dying, I guess. A full-on fury of gunfire breaks out, continuing on as Mark, who is heavily injured and barely able to function, especially with that newfound concussion of his, tries crawling his way out of the chaos, the war zone, ending up getting squished by Bartel, who falls to the ground on top of Mark after getting a gunshot wound. The villagers, screaming, shrieking, pig and all, are now free to enter the house now that Bartel is down for the count, retrieving the young cow/dog, Bella, who was apparently just stolen from them by Boris, which is really what initiated this entire war of sorts, this entire confrontation. But now that the villagers are here, they're inside, Mark is saved. Oh. He can finally be released from his hell and set free. Right? Right? Wrong. Because as soon as the village leader lays eyes on Mark, he somehow, for some reason I cannot fathom, also sees Mark as Bartel's long-lost wife, Gloria. As do all the other creepy village guys accompanying him. What is this, a case of mass delusion or something? I don't know. Group psychosis? Town psychosis? And despite how beat up and enfeebled Mark is, the supposed apparent leader straight away demands for Gloria to sing. And although Mark is all battered and broken up, by persuasion of rifle point, he starts trying to kind of whisper sing. That's the best he can do. His lecherous, repulsive audience enamored regardless. Oh, if I could just pluck Mark out of that situation and toss him far away, save him, I would. Oh. And then the leader goes on to confess his heartfelt love for Gloria, tearily asking her why she left him. So at this point, poor Mark over there is absolutely doomed. He's doomed. Because in spite of him trying to convince them that he is not Gloria, he is Mark Stevens, he is a singer, not Gloria, it all falls on very deaf, unhearing ears. Because he is Gloria. Gloria! What is this? Mass psychosis? I don't know. Or everyone there being dropped on their head as babies? Extreme lead or heavy metal levels in the water? I don't know. Something. But right as the delusional, depraved group of lunatics start descending on Mark, or to them, Gloria, Boris, who is apparently still alive and has gotten access to the rifle, starts yelling and shooting at all of them, allowing Mark a clumsy, exasperated escape from the madness, where he manages to sneak outside into the frigid, freezing morning chill, getting away right as the group finally and officially dispatches Bartel. You won't see me crying over that. But now that the group has taken care of Bartel, and most likely Boris, they're now on the hunt for Gloria. And not only is their pet pig a screaming, squealing banshee, it's also apparently a damn bloodhound. The group of psychotic psychos using the pig to try and track down Gloria's scent through the woods. By this point, Mark has a somewhat decent head start on the group, but he's so battered and injured and probably concussed that he can only manage a slow, clumsy amble away. And as someone who has not only been concussed but had a pretty bad concussion before, yeah, you can't really think straight. You can't really function on a hurried, frantic basis. You're just kind of out of it. To make matters even worse, somehow, Mark has to cross a freezing stream to help, I guess, cover his tracks and prevent leaving a trail of footprints behind, or a scent trail for that psychotic pig. Mark, thereafter, almost getting stuck in the death trap of a marsh surrounding the stream. Like, can the universe give Mark a break? Gosh. But apparently that evil pig is a pretty decent tracker somehow, and the group is pretty hot on Mark's trail, despite the marshland and the growing fog. But because of the impediment and obstacle of the marshland mixing with the pretty heavy fog, the nutty leader dude continues on after Mark on his lonesome, the group staying behind. And just as the leader spots the hobbling frozen Mark off in the distance, the leader ends up accidentally stepping into a deep pocket of bog, of marshy sludge, quickly beginning to sink into it as he reaches out to Mark for help. The audacity, crazy. But because Mark is on the brink of complete collapse, and because this guy is a psychotic, dangerous monster, Mark shuffles over to kneel down to kind of just slowly watch the leader sink. And as this delusional evil man is sinking deeper and deeper into the bog, down into the horrific, murky depths, which is definitely a massive fear of mine. He's demanding to know why Gloria came back, demanding to know if Gloria loves him at all still. Insisting that Gloria tells him that she loves him one last time before he drowns in the marsh. Yuck. Woman in Black, anyone? I'm getting those vibes pretty strong right now, unfortunately. And surprisingly, Mark obliges this creep, barely able to bring his voice above a cracked whisper to say that he loved him. Right before said creep is entirely consumed by the freezing evil bog. Entirely deserved. Oh my gosh. And then as Mark is just hobbled over, looking down into the bog where that creep's head just sank beneath, the movie ends. Kind of abruptly too. But the important thing is that it ends. For our sakes. And wow. I don't even know what to say about this movie. It was so grim and formidable and dark and depressing and depraved, but all in all pretty compelling, if not severely messed up, in a lot of aspects as well. But wow, leave it to the French to make a horror masterpiece like this. I've seen a lot of gritty, horrific horror movies, obviously, but there's always an added element of grisliness, grittiness, or I guess brutality when it comes to foreign films. Like, they do not hold back at all. And if you watch this movie for yourselves, which I don't really recommend, you'd see what I mean by that. Because there are a lot of other aspects I kind of had to brush over for the sake of our sanity. Things you definitely don't want to know about anyway, okay? Things that don't interfere with the plot and are just horrific. I'm not technically recommending this movie, but if you have seen it, or if your heart is set on seeing it now for some reason, let me know what you guys thought of it. Like, it definitely wasn't a bad movie. It was really creepy and eerie in a compelling, good way, I guess? A good horror movie type way, right? And I guess the idea is fresh. I hope so. I don't want to see another movie like this. But by this point, for better or for worse, I've pretty much seen far worse, so I'm kind of unfazed by it. But I feel like a normal person would be pretty disturbed by this movie. Anywho, we got through that together. High five, double high five. And Leroy wants you to know that he's proud of you for making it through that horror fest. That depressing horror fest. We hope you had a great Halloween and had a safe experience coming out of your multiple sugar comas. Can be a rough experience right there. But with that, me and the Haunted Doll Squad shall see you next week.